Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to another Naija2Sheffield event. I think it's my seventh event, I guess, or my sixth event. It's good to see new and familiar faces. So tonight, myself and Olakunle talking about C# and MCP. And before I start, I must tell you guys we have presented this exact topic at York, at .NET York, and that was about 2-3 months ago. And from that time to now, a lot have changed about MCPs and what it has in store for developers. And so, if you've seen the recording of the last one, this is going to be different. And of course, tonight we will not be having a demo, so we will walking you through what we've played with, the research. So you won't actually be seeing the StoryBot, but we'll be telling you more about what we've done and experience and how you can bring that into your work as well. So, all right. My name is Olorunfemi. I'm currently a senior platform engineer, but I have expertise in .NET with background in backend development. Basically, I have the Microsoft ecosystem and Azure. And
my name is Olakunle Abiola. So I have expertise in C# too, and I also studied a master's in artificial intelligence at Sheffield University.
Alright, so this is a cultural StoryBot, and we have played with C# and MCPs, and the way we are going to have the presentation is talk about our journey from Lagos to the Yorkshire area, and so moving from Lagos to Sheffield was quite a very interesting journey for me, and there was a lot of expectations. There was a lot of first timers in terms of events that I didn't think I was going to experience. For example, going through the tunnel, the trains going to the tunnel on the way to Leeds, and then some of these experiences are quite profound, and then in the way that we explore life, we also bring those kind of experiences into the software that we build as developers or as engineers, or basically as internet users trying to find information about certain cultures, information about it can be about countries, it can be about people, and it can also be about everyday things like food and drinks and pizza and some of these things. So back in Lagos, I used to enjoy going to the beach a lot with my family. That's my son there. And Lagos is a coastal city with a lot of access to water, and there are a lot of beaches there that someone can go and have some fun. And coming to Sheffield as well, the very first week I went to Brent Green, joined the working group where we explored some of the areas this picture was taken around the Brent Green, and something I've enjoyed doing, exploring the countryside and also appreciating the nature as well.
Yes, okay. So for me, I enjoyed, my journey from Nigeria down to the UK. Like you said, coming here, there are a lot of, expectations that I had, painted some pictures in my head, and some were the same, and some were also different. Back in Nigeria, I never really had time to explore my city because I stayed in Lagos. But this is one of the memorable pictures that I took. I think this was just about a month before leaving Nigeria. So I went out with my friend and my sister here. So we went to Olumorok. Okay, I can't show you the picture here, but it's a big rock in Nigeria and it's very popular. So, and we took this picture at an art gallery. So coming down to the United Kingdom, I would say a lot of things came as a shocker to me. For example, one of the things that I noticed is how people were willing to go an extra mile to help you. So when I landed in London, and the whole scene was looking different. The summary is how I got to Sheffield. I don't know, but I just know I got a lot of help from people, coming down here. And I remember when I got to Sheffield and I had all my luggage and everything. I had someone, I can still remember his face, coming down to help me take the luggage from the top of the stairs down at the train station. So yeah, I thought maybe coming here, I'll just be alone from the beginning, but that was one of the shocker for me.
Alright, so now quest to explore the city and of course the culture and the people. We've highlighted some of the things that we were trying to understand. Like you can see a cup of tea, music, what kind of music they like around there. And of course the ancient traditions. I did this particularly by visiting some museums there's a museum close to the Sheffield Children's Hospital, and there's a park around there. Then of course the language dialect, I'm quite aware that there's some accent differences around there, and those that are far up north. And the food as well. Eating the food has been difficult, I must say, but I'm trying. I'm trying to eat even the steak and so some of the food that we find it like the Sunday toast or the Sunday roast. And of course, I was also interested about the meat and the folklore, what are kids afraid about. Back home it used to be call it ojuju, like an unknown spirit, and the dance. And the important thing here is that as much as I was interested in finding all this information, I was also very critical about finding accurate information, not discussion of history or information that are not very, very accurate that gives a wrong impression about these people. So, okay. So from Lagos, we had Zobo. It's called Afrobeat. I don't know if some of you have heard some of our musicians like Burna Boy and Rema. And in Lagos, we had very beautiful festivals called Eyo. I spent out when I was way younger, and the collaboration which celebrates the African king of Afrobeat, Fela Kuti. And of course, when we say our people, we say Afar. It's a pidgin language or an adaptation of the English language that we use to communicate within ourselves. And when you're hungry, you can say Adehesh, so that is I'm hungry. Then of course, we saw the comparison as well with how the language is here. There's this popular Yoshati brand, And of course, I read about the Celtic and Celtic, and I heard about the Wassail, which is about praying for apples, bountiful harvest, something like that. And then I read about the Vikings and Ayo. Did I get that right? Ayo? Now? Alright. The pudding, the Sunday roast, and the dog, the crazy dog there, Baggest, and the Maurice dancing as well. Some kind of dancing that I was trying to read about. Then, of course, from our side, we had the Mami Water, which is like the mermaid spirit, and Madame Kwekwe from the secondary schools. And we had a lot of dances as well that are very, very popular back home as well. So, it's mine. One of the most significant differences in my culture and the culture of many Western countries is that knowledge is mostly stored historically in books, using documentations and libraries. So when people die actually, and they spend their life writing about their discoveries, their diaries, their events, their travels, their adventures, the new generations are able to just go to the shelf, pick up that book, and then they are able to read it. And of course, that's a lot of, that alone is a big factor in ensuring that knowledge is transferred from a generation to another generation. In our culture, it's a bit more different. The knowledge was passed down through oral. So you find learned people who teach the children about history, about art, about the cosmos, about events, about tales, and this people get that knowledge, and when they have children, they also pass that knowledge to their children. But over time, because those knowledge was passed down through oral, then sometimes there's a loss of context, there's a loss of materials in this knowledge transfer, and of course that's also a factor that can inhibit advancement in terms of civilization.
So you'll be wondering why we've gone through the route of telling you different stories about ourselves, different stories about our culture. And the reason we've gone through that process is to establish the fact that we have what we call base knowledge, and we have knowledge that also comes from adding a lot of context to that base knowledge. And AI is the new poster child of technology. LLM is also, at the forefront of the development of AI. We all use LLMs every day, like large language models. And how we've been able to achieve this is that we get data, which is like the knowledge, and we push it into this process called AI, because AI is very broad. For example, like a large language model is trained on some knowledge, and it is able to, ingest that knowledge and understand and do some form of prediction to provide answers. So an example of a large language model would be OpenAI's ChatGPT. So we've given these machines knowledge. At some point, we are now expecting them to spit out knowledge to us, basically.
All right. To buttress more on this point, what this slide is trying to describe is what is currently happening, I think, since the last 5 years, where you find large language models trying to consume basically all the information that we have created as humans, like Wikipedia, the libraries, the books, the catalogs, basically everything that is in the open public. We have powerful large language models and machine learning algorithms training themselves on this data. So it's a kind of an ingest period, and when this reached a particular stage, then it started making these models open to the entire world, and people started interacting with it, and they're getting feedback from those data. So you find you find people are reading books, you find people teaching children, you find more of that, and you also find people reading from the libraries. But now the large language models are reading all the books, all the literatures, all the science textbooks, all the research papers, the journals, the noise, everything, right, is going in at this time. And now the effect now is people are resorting to AI for their primary source of information, for their primary source of research. So, for example, as a developer, if you're trying to find a bug, or you're trying to find similar bugs to a problem, you would go to Stack Overflow, you would go to GitHub's issues on some SDKs or libraries. But now it's quite easy to just go to AI and ask, I have this error, what can I do? And it has ingested all the data, all the open GitHub repositories. It has ingested them, now it's feeding that data. And everybody is hooked up from their devices for even to write an email. People, Microsoft, for example, encourage people to use AI. So people don't no longer, sometimes some people don't longer bother to write good emails. Just write it and then the AI just fixes it, There's a lot of data out. People are getting more reliant on this AI, and it's a problem. And today I'm going to introduce you to this word. I'm sure some people here will be familiar with this word. I'm also sure that everyone identifies who this is. Who doesn't? Okay. So this word says IQ power. This phrase, IQ power and stability. So who can guess what stability is? Stability. Okay. Okay.
To know something.
Yeah, it means to know, but in a way that is more profound than just knowing, and that's why we have the picture of Abba there, which is a genius, And the word sabi actually means to know. So when someone is it's a bit of a broken English or something.
Yeah.
But when you it's for purposes being smart and also being knowledgeable as well. And there's a twist to it. Yeah, it means the ability to know. Pardon me. So the problem with this AI is this ability to know can easily burn bias. And that's the very, very problem. That's one of the fundamental problems that we have in the current AI. Because when humans generally, many human beings are biased in terms of how they write history. There's a phrase, the conquerors write the history of the battle, how the battle went, And then there's a challenge that this bias poses, because when you rely on AI, eventually more tools, more softwares, even the operating systems will rely more on AI. But when you're trying to learn about a culture how can we eliminate bias in what you are building? For general users, they cannot do anything about it, but as engineers, software engineers, the power is in your hand, and that is what takes us back to MCP. So an anagram of Sabi can become bias, and that's it. Okay. Just, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, for the next few minutes, I'll just be talking about MCP and the reason why we have MCP. MCP in itself stands for Model Context Protocol. I don't know how many of us have heard of it. Okay, yes. So, the way AI, and when I say AI, I'm mostly talking about like large language models because they are like the popular form of, or the popular models that we know. The way they work is we train them on data and they provide answers based on that knowledge or that data that we've given to them. But they now evolved to, or we decided to find a way to give them knowledge beyond the data they've been trained on. So the next step in that evolution was finding a way to pre-train those models. Pre-training is like you've trained this AI on the base knowledge. Let's say you trained the model on general knowledge, but you want it to be able to have more information about, let's say, Sheffield, for example. So, in order to give it that, you go through a process of like getting a pre-trained model, which is trained on the base knowledge. You get the additional data set, which is knowledge about Sheffield, and you pass it through the model again so that it has an understanding of Sheffield and is able to be somehow biased to, providing outputs that are optimized for maybe talking about Sheffield, basically. That process requires you to take that model. Let's say you have a model running on the cloud. You have to take that model, go through that pre-training process before you deploy it again, which is like a long process. One of the things, the solutions that the developers of large language models, or AI in general, have come up with is a technique called RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation, which allows you to provide additional context to a model without going through that pre-training process. So you have this particular, what's it called, RAG, allowing you to, I know some of us that have used ChatGPT, you would have uploaded a PDF at some point, and the model is able to give you answers or give you a summary based on the PDF you've uploaded or the document you've uploaded, or maybe an Excel file you upload it. So what facilitates that is this retrieval augmented generation. So let me go back to where we are starting from. We have the model. It has that general knowledge. You want to provide it context, or more context. The first evolution was you have to give it additional data, which is like a retraining. Then we move to having RAG. which doesn't require you to train the model again. You are just able to provide that model with additional knowledge on the go or on the fly. Then from RAG, another evolution is MCP, which is another way to provide context to your large language model. Because if a model doesn't have knowledge about a particular area, it tends to do what we call like overgeneralization, or it tends to be biased. So in order to give it context, you have to get maybe additional knowledge to give it to it. So MCP facilitates this by allowing large language models to be able to talk to data sources. Example of those data sources are, so imagine you have an application that needs to talk to a MongoDB database. We have, so there's a possibility of you having to write your own custom code to talk to that MCP, to talk to a MongoDB database. What MCP is a standard created by Anthropic. Anthropic are the makers of cloud. They are a competitor to, let me not say a competitor to, but they are similar to OpenAI. They've created this standard for large language models to be able to talk to data sources and tools. So instead of writing your own code to integrate with these data sources, there is a standard there already, and developers or these companies that have these data sources will provide you with what we call MCP servers that you'll be able to integrate with directly without writing your own custom code. Yeah, that's basically what it is.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to just polish what you have said. So this tool actually was what we worked on, and that was what was the demo in the last meetup, and couldn't demo it today because we are trying to modernize it for what has changed in the last 2 months. So basically, it's a desktop virtual assistant that blends cultures. A chatbot that can say, hey, tell me about this, specifically about it can be customized to take in data from different sources, and but the point is, when you're trying to learn about information from agriculture, it gives you a more accurate information because the data that the AI has been trained on is not actually accurate. So it's a desktop virtual assistant. It blends the cultures. It connects cultures using conventional AI data. So you can actually feed it with data from multiple sources. And of course, it can answer from cultural queries. And it leverages real Nigerian and Sheffield data. So we brought in data from data from Sheffield and also data from Nigeria, and we experimented with it. And this is how we built the application. So there was a scrapper there, and the data went into MongoDB, and so for the Microsoft ecosystem, the very first stop that you can connect your MCP to is GitHub Copilot. That's for developers that are writing code. You have a database. Maybe in an organization, you have some database that has business specific data. Then you want to feed that data into your IDE and into something you are building. And then that's the perfect example for this kind of application. Then SK is there on the side, but we're going to talk about Semantic Kernel later on, I guess. This is the UI application. So it ingests data from the scraper, then it goes into Mongo and it saves, and then Semantic Kernel exposes data via signal and then and REST APIs to the UI applications via HTTP. Then of course MCP brings a connection to your GitHub Copilot. So for example, you are trying to seed data into a database. You need I don't know how many of you have tried to seed all the postcodes in the world. That is like all the country names, all the states and provinces, postcodes, and then you try to find sources that have this accurate information. Then this, that was some of the that's a use case actually where this kind of tool becomes very useful when you're trying to get seed data or you're trying to populate some combo buses, some drop downs, and you need this data and you have a data source that can give you that. Then, of course, this is an example of how MCP can work quite well. You have your host, which is your IDE, and then within your IDE also you have the GitHub Copilot client, which Microsoft makes it easy to use. I think you enjoy it if it's a paid subscription. And of course, using the MCP protocol, you can have different MCP servers that directly integrate into your local IDE, and you can bind them to a local data source on Docker, in your machine, or it can even be in the cloud. So the data inside your database can directly feed MCP, and then you have this data available in your GitHub Copilot. So when you're trying to, maybe you are refactoring your code, and or you are, if it's a front-end designer, you are refactoring your UI, and you want to present some charts based on real business insight or real business data. That can come very, very handy because you'll be able to plug in your company data into what you're trying to develop. And of course, you can still use web APIs to link your MCP server to anything on the internet. Public APIs, currencies, depending on the kind of work you do. And you can bring all those things, all those information back to your Copilot. So with that MCP, your GitHub Copilot just gives you information only from the cloud-based LLM, the large language model. But with MCP, you can actually bridge it and bring in more of the data in. Then, of course, you get to reduce hallucinations and all kind of horrible things that it can create. Then, yeah, I'm going to skip this. Alright, so
Okay. So I would like to ask us a question. Maybe if anybody has tried, for example, have you tried integrating maybe your application or your solution with something like Stripe for payment integration? How many of us have done something on payment integration? Okay, yes. So, oh, yeah, Stripe is
Americans.
yeah, but or PayPal, maybe you have an API that you want to integrate your solution with. And the process will be maybe you writing your own custom code, to post and receive data from that API. So if you are building a solution using AI or a large language model, so imagine a situation where that large language model is able to talk to PayPal's API directly. You are able to use natural language to say, go to this API and get me the number of transactions in this month. And the large language model is able to get the right parameters to fit to the endpoints, and it will not only get just the JSON that comes from, you can get the JSON, but it's able to now bring it back to you in that format that, for example, ChatGPT gives you, like a chat window, where you're able to see an explanation of the data coming back, and you can also see the raw data. So, what facilitates that is the MCP we've been talking about, and Microsoft has different MCP servers that you can use to talk to different APIs. So I'm just going to pick one. There are many of them. You could have, so Microsoft has an Azure MCP server that helps you to do all the interaction with your Azure cloud infrastructure directly from a large language model. It can be tricky, it's possible, very, very possible, but we know how large language models can be. So I'll just sound a note of caution that this is possible for a large language model to directly interact with these APIs, but as someone that's played with it, I know how it behaves. I know that it would be a different thing, using it in production. So you just have to be careful. Another one is the GitHub MCP. Let's say you want to pull information about a particular repository, or you want to trigger some maybe actions on a particular repository. You probably need to write your HTTP, use your HTTP client from your language that you use, to interact with that API. But if you have the MCP server, which Microsoft has developed, you are able to use your large language model, to directly interact with that repo using natural language to, query data from it.
All right. So I think one of the most interesting things that, as a platform engineer, I have not fully explored AI Foundry with MCP and the Azure MCP. Yes, but I've been trying to play around these tools. So what I've identified is I think they are like, you can compare them to 3 years old. They are still at the very early stages of being very responsible, I would say. So, but we can take a peek at the future, at what this is. It's really going to be a big deal in the next few months and few years. Like I said, just 3 months, a lot have changed regarding this. Different companies posting their MCP servers and encouraging developers to switch to it. And you find this interesting thing about connectors. Everybody is creating MCP connectors that allows you to connect to their product in a very intelligent way, as all apps now are kind of required to be intelligent. And of course, the Microsoft 365 agents took it. I don't know. I played with the Cultural Studio. It's for business, not for personal Microsoft users. And it's very, very interesting. From there, you can set up different kind of agents that can help to power your business. For business people, I'm not in the business department, but there's a lot of very, very useful things there. For example, if you have a website, you have a small business, you have a website for your business, and then you need a chatting agent, then before now, you would have to create a bot, some chatting bot, and give you some FAQ, plug into some knowledge base, and it can respond to visitors on your site automatically, and guide them. But on the Microsoft 365 Copilot Studio, you can do it in 5 seconds with just supplying the domain of your website. It can automatically create a chatbot ready to put on your website, that can answer information about your website, your different pages to your users. And I think that is going to be very, very interesting. Well, when we were building the StoryBot, we used MongoDB because a lot of advantages there. Unstructured, of course, no SQL. It's fast for writing and retrieving. And of course, when you need some structure, you can as well interact with it with your SQL, and it provides great performance. But now, we have not changed. We have not changed this particular slide. The vector DB is what is used now regarding when you are trying to build integrations with large language models regarding the agents and how the models itself also work, especially the multimodal models that takes in combinations of text and images and audios and videos. They use vector DB. So this is a bit outdated. So,
okay.
Yes.
So within the Microsoft ecosystem, where we have the need to have applications in that ecosystem interact with AI, AI models or any other AI-related infrastructure, Microsoft has provided a library called Semantic Kernel. Semantic Kernel is a standard way of having your application. For example, you are writing your application in C#. It's a standard way of having the application, integrate with AI infrastructure outside of the application. We all know that most of the AI stuff is written in Python, so it will be very difficult for us to start writing a lot of things from the scratch using different other languages. So why don't you just use what is already available on the market? And Microsoft has made that easier by providing this particular library called Semantic Kernel that provides you like an abstraction layer for you to talk to different. You can use it to integrate with large language models. You can use it to talk to knowledge sources and different other artificial intelligence what's it called processes that you need to perform in your application. So it's more or less like an orchestration library. So when we are building the StoryBot, we're able to use Semantic Kernel to talk to an MCP server and at the same time integrate with a large language model that's ChatGPT, and we're able to use Semantic Kernel to carry out that orchestration. So it has different interfaces. So let me paint a picture. For example, you are building a product, a chatbot, and you want that chatbot to be able to integrate with cloud. By cloud, I mean the Anthropic cloud, and you want it to also integrate with ChatGPT, and you also have a knowledge base. You understand? So instead of building your own library from scratch, Microsoft has provided this semantic kernel that has different functions, different methods, different layers of abstractions that you just have to just plug in different things, and it just does that orchestration for you directly.
So, in summary, Semantic Kernel is like a big thank you from Microsoft to .NET developers. I've been writing .NET apps since Windows Phone 7. I guess some people here might have written code for Windows Phone 7 when it was a thing, And like you said, .NET became, before, .NET used to be the first, then later on Python, Go, and some of these languages get the first, to have support in terms of libraries, and sometimes Microsoft would even push a product and then they would not create a version for C# on their site. So this was a big thank you from them to put in the .NET developers first, and of course we will bring in AI into .NET. So you can have we did an execution with cloud.
Yeah.
You can actually build your own ChatGPT interface with all the attachments and everything, with semantic kind of bring in your photos, your text, your audio, different kind of stuff. You can have that two-way in and out, and of course your IDEs they get to connect with MCP, and then you have your data, you have your tools there, you have your development tools like JIT, and of course your AI and IDs and your interfaces, everything you need to interact with. MCP can bridge that gap, and that's why this tool forms a quite interesting combination of technologies there. And of course, we have this presentation that shows three RAG that he mentioned earlier on. The very differences. Well, MCP is a protocol, like I said, owned by Anthropic, created by them, which Microsoft and a few other companies have adopted as well officially. And of course, Semantic is created by Microsoft. It's a pattern kind of SDK library you bring into your project, and you can explore the method inside it. And of course, purpose-wise, the MCP wants to talk about the context. It's like when you have a REST API and you have your Swagger, or you have your Signal Hub, and you have your hubs, the names of your hubs. Similar, so the MCP is context aware, while the semantic kernel juggles, like orchestrates different LMMs and your knowledge bases. And of course, the main advantage there for RAG is it brings enhanced answering. So this does more of the anchoring, or we call it grounding of your AI with your actual data. And of course, you can see the format there: spec, toolkit, and architecture. And it is used in IDEs. So MCPs is going to be very, very useful more in your IDEs, while SK is going to be more useful in your project, your .NET project, your apps, your web applications, mobile, and of course, RAGs is about your language models. And the audience, MCP is very useful for platform engineers, and Semantic kernel for app developers and AI engineers for this. So, key takeaways: you can build secure stuff with MCP, and Azure testing on Docker, locally on cloud, and for organizations that have very high security requirements, you don't want to push all your data to AI models. You can bridge that gap and then grant your output and sometimes your input with MCP. And of course, you have your .NET apps for optimization there. We did a play around with C++. Actually, we're trying to find metrics, performance metrics with what we are playing with, trying to see some benchmarks there. So, thank you very much. That's our thought for today. Any question?